aboard, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
The first time I saw it rise into the sky, I was virtually speechless. I stood there, my mouth agape, my eyes open. I thought, this is wonderful. This is stupendous. If we can do this, we can do anything.
The world could now watch as the shuttle launched communication satellites into orbit. There were already many there. And with every new satellite, the world grew smaller. The remotest place was now just a phone call away.
We had actually figured this out and built something that allowed us to manipulate the trillion-dollar phone system around the world. We go to a payphone and we take a cable to White Plains, a satellite to Europe. We go over to the Turkey satellite station, take a satellite back to Texas, and we'd actually loop around the world 3 or 4 times and call the payphone next door. And so you could shout into the phone, and about 40 seconds later, you'd hear it on the other phone. And it was patently illegal, by the way. We were lucky we didn't get caught.
Stephen Jobs and Stephen Wozniak would bring computer technology into the 1980s, such a far cry from the 50s and 60s.
The computers at that time were as big as this room we're in right now, if not bigger. They were custom made. You could not just go out and buy a computer. They were enormous instruments, enormously expensive.
Developed by the military but also put to use by the bureaucracy, computers, some Americans worried, could be used by the government to monitor or even control the lives of its citizens. Just like Big Brother in George Orwell's most famous novel.
It was in 1948 when Orwell wrote 1984. But he was overly gloomy about the resilience of democracy.
Wozniak and Jobs and their fans had a dream: make computers available to all Americans.
There was going to be a computer in every home, and it was going to change the world. We talked about how people were going to be empowered. I listened to people who were excited about the revolution. We talked about it as being a revolution. And there were a lot of people like me who somehow wanted their own computer that they owned.
When cheap microchips became available, Wozniak and Jobs decided to build the computer that everybody was looking for.
We were forced to start this company. We didn't really want to, but everybody wanted these computers. We worked in my parents' garage and eventually kind of took over their whole house. It was kind of funny.
Their first efforts were Apple I and the popular Apple II, launched in 1977. They made the computer affordable. But it was the 1984 Macintosh with its mouse and user-friendly graphics that truly liberated the computer.
On January 24, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
We shall prevail.
The explosion of personal computers onto the market seemed to liberate technology. For one thing, ordinary citizens began to dream of going into space themselves.
I think most people had come to believe that spaceflight was absolutely safe. Pretty soon, civilians of all sorts will take these flights to begin this bus service, which was the shuttle.
The first civilian chosen was a teacher, Krista McAuliffe.
Oh, that's great! I love it!
The New Hampshire mother of 2 small children joined the crew of the 25th shuttle mission. The launch from Cape Canaveral, Florida, was set after many delays for January the 28th, 1986. For Florida, it was an unusually cold morning, 27 degrees.
T-minus 15 seconds.
We were quite surprised to hear that the countdown was proceeding ahead.
No shuttle had been launched in weather that cold.
7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission.
As the shuttle cleared the tower And the first shock waves of sound began to pound the press grandstand, the roof bouncing up and down, the plywood under your feet bouncing, the shock waves hitting your chest. At that point, we were all standing up, we were all screaming our heads off, go. I mean, and any sense of professional composure was lost.
My husband and I were just stepping off an escalator in a department store, in the TV department. So we stopped to watch. And there were 100 sets all on the same scene. And we watched it go up. And then all of a sudden, poof! And we just couldn't believe it.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
I felt a sense of utter cold doom virtually flow over me. That massive, huge 2,000-ton vehicle had been shredded into tiny little pieces, almost like confetti.
It was caused not by high-tech computer failure, but by the simplest gasket which had contracted in the cold.
Just for those lives to be gone in a flash, just gone. It's unbelievable.
We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye, and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
The 1980s was a decade of pushing boundaries.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll.
1981 saw the premiere of round-the-clock music television.
It was great. My mom thought MTV was the spawn of Satan.
The BTL Television Network presents...
Competing for the attention of television viewers was a new breed of televangelists who preached a mixture of old-fashioned religion and modern entertainment. They attracted about 90 million viewers a week.
And I thought they were unique.
Set 5.
The evangelists on TV.
Speaking on the subject.
It was all over television.
The true Pentecostal message is
Jimmy Swaggart and
when you give
Baker,
your $1,000 gift, you receive.
It was really unique, you know. Jesus theme park. Wow, you know. I mean, of course, I didn't buy into it, but that was the mood of the country. That was the mood, the way things were going.
In the early 1980s, the world had its first warnings about AIDS.
In June of 1981, we heard the first report of a new and peculiar disease. We called it Slim disease for a while, and we called it other things for a while. We did not really have the understanding in 1981 of what we were up against.
And suddenly you would hear, so-and-so is sick. How is so-and-so? And people you knew got it. People were getting sick and dying.
Acquired immune deficiency syndrome. AIDS affected mainly gay men at first, and by 1983, it had killed 2,000 people.
Literally, people were dropping like flies.
Tom Amiano was a gay man in San Francisco. In 1984, when 6,000 people had died of AIDS, Tim, a teacher and Tom's lover of 6 years, was diagnosed with the disease. Tom became an activist.
Your frustration was, there is no help. There is absolutely no help.
What do we want? You're afraid.
We were desperate, and we were angry.
We had tremendous trouble making the people around President Reagan understand
how serious this was. These were ultra-conservative people, and most people got AIDS by doing things that other people didn't do, and most people didn't approve of their doing.
Tim, he was a wonderful, wonderful man, and when you knew Tim and you knew his worth, this could drive you absolutely nuts.
It was very hard for all of us to watch him deteriorate in the last days of his life, but at the same time, he gave us so much.
By 1985, more than 12,000 people had died. One of them was the movie idol, Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson's death took AIDS out of the shadows. AIDS affected anybody, rich and poor, young and old, men and women. When Allie Gertz got AIDS from an encounter with a bisexual lover, she became emblematic of the disease's spreading danger.
Allie Gertz was my best girlfriend. Allie gave me a big lecture. Tori, you be careful. You take care of yourself. And that night she went home early. And 2 weeks later, she ended up in the hospital. Someone did a very simple blood test and realized she had full-blown AIDS and she had pneumocystis pneumonia. People magazine put her on the cover of the magazine, and it sold more issues than any issue that year. All of a sudden, she was everybody's little sister, best friend, daughter. She wasn't a drug user, she wasn't promiscuous. It didn't matter who you were. All it meant was that you could fall in love with someone, and that was the fatal mistake.
Charles Booger, Stephen Clover, Anthony Martin, Tia Johnny.
In 1987, people who had died of AIDS got their memorial. A quilt which showed the magnitude of the nation's loss. More than 40,000 Americans.
Alex Murphy, Jerry Parker.
I think that for my generation, AIDS was the equivalent of World War II. It was a cataclysmic event. It was a wake-up call. We had pushed the boundaries of behavior so far. And here was nature coming up with a way to say, you've gone too far.
And our dear son, Dr. James Holland III.
By the end of the decade, almost 100,000 people had died in the battle with AIDS, and it was not over.
You were here to liberate, not to conquer. And so you and those others did not doubt your cause.
On June the 6th, 1984, President Reagan and some of the D-Day veterans commemorated those who died for freedom on the beaches of Normandy.
You all knew that some things are worth dying for. One's country is worth dying for, and democracy is worth dying for because it's the...
President Reagan saw the struggle with the Soviet Union in the clear-cut terms of World War II. Good versus evil.
The Soviets were willing to pursue a very aggressive foreign policy, and indeed their foreign policy, they were quite frank about it, was world domination.
This is a Soviet intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, which can reach the United States 30 minutes after launch.
I remember standing out in the street of my house on a fall afternoon with the dark clouds and thinking, wow, there was this huge presence on the other side of the world that was out to get us all.
What if free people could live secure in the knowledge that we could intercept and destroy strategic ballistic missiles before they reached our own soil or that of our allies?
The President's Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, or Star Wars, was part of his effort to neutralize communism everywhere. In Nicaragua, he supported the Contras, who were trying to topple the Soviet-supported government. In the tiny Caribbean island of Grenada, he quickly crushed a communist coup. And at home, he started the greatest peacetime defense build-up ever.
He made people feel good about our country, that it was strong economically and strong in defense, and that you felt like he could protect you.